Hey, welcome back to WTF History, the channel where we rip open the pages of the past to reveal the wild, shocking, and downright jaw-dropping stories that history books gloss over. Today, we're stepping into a world that's been painted as a fantasy of silk and seduction, a place of exotic luxury straight out of a Hollywood dream. But trust me, the truth is far darker, far stranger, and way more intense. We're diving into the Ottoman Imperial Harem, a golden cage inside Topkapı Palace where 400 women lived, loved, and fought for survival under the iron grip of one man, the Sultan. And let's unravel the chilling reality of what really happened on those cold nights in the harem. You're in for a wild ride. Picture yourself in Istanbul, 1520. The air is thick with the scent of the Bosphorus, and the muezzin's call to prayer echoes across the Golden Horn. Topkapı Palace stands like a fortress of secrets, its walls hiding a world that's both dazzling and terrifying. Inside, the Sultan, ruler of 3 continents, commands armies of 1 million men. But his real power? And beyond, their names, their pasts, their very identities were erased the moment they crossed the palace threshold. They entered a system where every breath, every glance, every choice was controlled. The harem wasn't a place of pleasure. It was a machine, a ruthless hierarchy where survival meant playing a game with stakes higher than life itself. At the top of this glittering pyramid sat the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, a woman whose whisper could topple grand viziers or reshape nations. She controlled the harem's wealth. These African guardians weren't just overseers. They controlled trade networks, religious endowments, and the fates of the women under their watch. Their wealth and influence stretched far beyond the harem's gilded gates, making them some of the most feared men in the Ottoman world. Then came the women themselves, all while serving higher-ranking women. Above them were the odalisques, women with a slim chance at catching the Sultan's eye. Higher still were the gozde, wielding power to shape policy and crush enemies. But no matter their rank, every woman lived under one truth. Their lives belonged to the Sultan. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the harem came alive with a ritual that was equal parts hope and horror. The Kisler Aga would glide through the corridors, carrying a silver tray that gleamed with the weight of destiny. Which family needed rewarding? Which alliance needed strengthening? Which woman had the beauty or brains to serve the empire's larger goals? Being chosen wasn't an honor. It was a gamble with your life. The selected woman faced a grueling ordeal. Hours in the imperial baths, her body scrubbed with rosewater and amber oils until it glowed like polished marble. Her hair was combed with pearl-studded combs, her body draped in silks that rivaled the Bosphorus at dawn. Deep blues, rich crimsons, colors that screamed wealth. But no jewelry, not a single earring, ring, or necklace. Why? Because the Ottoman court had seen too many poison-laced pendants, too many cords disguised as necklaces strong enough to strangle. Every detail was about control, about reminding her she was property, not a partner. The chosen woman couldn't even walk to the Sultan's chambers. She had to crawl on her knees, eyes down, silent unless he spoke first. The room itself was a stage of intimidation. 12 black eunuchs stood like vultures around the perimeter, their eyes catching every gesture, every whisper, every flicker of emotion. These men weren't just guards. They were the Sultan's spies, reporting every detail to the palace's power players. The encounter could last minutes or hours, depending on his mood. Some women were dismissed before they could speak, their dreams shattered in an instant. Others stayed until dawn, a fleeting sign of favor that might mean nothing tomorrow. But the real terror came after. As the Sultan's breathing slowed, the Kisler Aga would lean in and whisper a question that could change everything. Should the sea be preserved? One word, yes or no, decided whether a woman would be allowed to conceive or face a brutal procedure to ensure she didn't. If he said no, the eunuchs would swoop in, using herbal concoctions and invasive techniques to erase any chance of pregnancy. It wasn't just medical. It was a violation, a cold reminder that her body wasn't her own, and thrown into the Bosphorus. The dark waters of that strait hold the bones of hundreds of women whose only crime was fertility without approval. Even menstruation could be deadly. At worst, execution by silk cord, a clean death that left no blood on sacred palace floors. To survive, women developed secret codes. Silver bracelets engraved with crescent moons to signal their forbidden days. Private charts called the Itakimi to track their cycles. Even daring substitutions where one woman would take another's place in the Sultan's bed. These acts of defiance required courage, trust, and perfect timing, because discovery meant death for both. Out of 400 women, maybe 10 would bear children. Maybe 3 would live to old age. The rest? Forgotten, their bones buried beneath Turkish soil. Yet in this world of calculated cruelty, red-haired, sharp-witted, and fiercely determined, she refused to be just another name on that silver tray. She saw the harem's rules as levers to pull, not chains to bind her. She learned Ottoman Turkish with a speed that stunned her teachers, weaving poetry that captivated Suleiman the Magnificent. She mastered the oud, filling his chambers with melodies that lingered in his thoughts. But beauty and talent weren't enough. Hundreds of women had those. Roxelana knew she had to be indispensable, not just in the Sultan's bed, but in his mind. She studied the harem's politics like a general mapping a battlefield, learning its alliances, its rivalries, its hidden currents of power. Roxelana started at the bottom, a Kalfa among trembling girls stolen from distant lands. These children, some as young as 12, arrived at Topkapı with their pasts erased, forced to learn the skills that might one day catch the Sultan's eye. Ottoman Turkish, court etiquette, the delicate arts of embroidery or music. Those who showed promise could become odalisques, women with a shot at favor, but it was a long shot. Above them were the Gözde, women who'd won the Sultan's attention in their own apartments in the harem's maze. But even they lived in fear, knowing a younger rival could steal their place. At the top stood the Haseki Sultan, mothers of imperial sons, wielding power to shape policy, control wealth, and destroy enemies. Above them all loomed the Valide Sultan and the Kisler Aga, the true puppet masters. The Kisler Aga, especially, was a force of nature. These eunuchs, stripped of their manhood but granted immense authority, controlled trade networks, religious endowments, and the harem's daily life. Their wealth rivaled the empire's richest governors, and their word could elevate or ruin a woman. Every night, the harem's heartbeat pulsed with that silver tray ritual. The Kisler Aga would present the names, and the Sultan's choice was a calculated move, rewarding allies, testing loyalties, or signaling shifts in power. The chosen woman faced hours of purification, bathed in rosewater and musk, draped in silks, but denied jewelry to prevent treachery. She'd crawl to the Sultan's chambers, surrounded by those 12 black eunuchs, their eyes like daggers. The encounter was a performance, not intimacy. Too much passion could seem presumptuous, too little could offend. Some women were sent back in minutes, their hopes crushed. Others lingered. But even a night with the Sultan was no guarantee of lasting favor. The aftermath was where the harem's cruelty shone. The Kisler Aga's question, should the sea be preserved, was a verdict on a woman's worth. A yes could lead to motherhood, a path to power. A no meant a cold, invasive procedure to ensure no child would come. These acts, performed by eunuchs with clinical precision, were designed to dehumanize, to remind the woman she was an instrument of the empire. Some eunuchs took it further, exploiting their power for cruelty. They'd prolong the procedures, knowing their victims couldn't protest without risking exile or death. Unauthorized pregnancy was the ultimate sin, punished by the chuval kaza, being sewn into a sack and drowned in the Bosphorus. Menstruation during a summons was just as dangerous, seen as a defilement of the sultan's sacred person. Women developed secret systems to survive. Crescent moon bracelets, the Itakimi calendar to track their cycles, even bedel gondom, sending a substitute to the sultan's bed. This required a look-alike. It was about building alliances in a world where trust was a luxury. The eunuchs controlled access to the sultan, and women bribed them with gold, jewels, or promises of future rewards, land, titles. Roxelana played this game like a master. She arrived at Topkapı with nothing but her wits, but she saw the harem as a puzzle to solve. She learned Ottoman Turkish with ferocious speed, crafting poetry that enchanted Suleiman. Her oud playing filled his chambers with music that lingered in his thoughts. But her real brilliance was in the politics. She didn't just compete for the sultan's bed. She made herself essential to his mind. She studied the harem's power players, from the Valide sultan to the eunuchs, and turned their suspicions into alliances. Her rival, Mahidevran Sultan, was outmaneuvered with surgical precision. Roxelana praised her beauty while subtly noting her age, something that would shake the empire to its core. That foundation led to a moment that changed history. In 1534, Roxelana did the unthinkable. She convinced Suleiman the Magnificent to marry her. Other sultans had loved their concubines, elevated them, granted them influence, but none had taken this step. Roxelana's marriage gave her a platform to reshape the empire, her voice carrying weight in a world that rarely listened to women. But her greatest triumph was yet to come, a battle for the throne itself that would test every ounce of her cunning. The harem was a world of relentless pressure, where every woman walked a razor's edge between glory and destruction. Roxelana's rise was extraordinary, but it was built on the same treacherous ground every woman navigated. The nightly selection ritual never stopped, each name on that silver tray a spark that could ignite a future or burn it to ash. The chosen faced the same grueling ordeal. Purification in the baths, silks without jewelry, crawling to the sultan's chambers under the eunuch's watchful eyes. The encounter was a tightrope. Too bold, and you risked offense. Too timid, and you be forgotten. The aftermath was always the same. Should the seed be preserved? A yes could mean power, a no meant humiliation. Alliances with eunuchs were a lifeline, but a dangerous one. A bribe could buy favor today, but betrayal tomorrow. Roxelana navigated this web with unmatched skill, but even she wasn't immune to its dangers. Her greatest challenge was ensuring her son Selim's succession. The Ottoman throne traditionally went to the strongest son. She built alliances with key figures, eunuchs, viziers, even foreign diplomats, while subtly undermining Mustafa's support. She praised his strengths in public, but in private, she planted doubts about his loyalty, his ambition, his fitness to rule. It was psychological warfare, executed with a precision that left no fingerprints. Roxelana's marriage had already broken tradition, but her campaign for Selim broke the harem itself. By the time Suleiman ordered Mustafa's execution in 1553, Roxelana's son was positioned as the heir. It was a victory that came at a cost. Her reputation, her enemies' wrath, the weight of a mother's ambition. But Roxelana wasn't done. She used her position to reshape the harem's role, making it less a prison and more a political force. Her architectural projects, her diplomacy. The world outside Topkapı was shifting, and the golden cage that had defined her life was about to face its greatest challenge. Those shifts began in the 19th century, and government accountability. These ideas were poison to the harem's foundations, which rested on absolute control. The harem's rituals, the silver tray, the purifications, the eunuch's watchful eyes began to feel like relics in a modernizing world. Sultan Abdul Hamid II, who reigned from 1876 to 1909, tried to hold on to the old ways. His court was a spectacle of tradition, with elaborate ceremonies and expanded palace facilities. But even he couldn't ignore the reformers who saw the harem as a symbol of everything backward about the empire. The Young Turk Revolution of 1908 was the final blow. These nationalists, inspired by European models, viewed the harem as an embarrassing anachronism. They wanted a modern Turkey, and the harem had no place in it. By 1924, Topkapı Palace was no longer a seat of power. It was a museum, its corridors open to tourists, its secrets reduced to artifacts behind glass. The women who had lived, loved, and died there were gone. Their stories buried in the Bosphorus or forgotten in the old palace of Bayezid, where banished concubines spent their lives in neglect. The harem wasn't a paradise of oriental luxury, as Hollywood might have you believe. It was a world where human beings were chess pieces in a game they could never fully control. Every move, every whisper, silent cunning was the only weapon that could keep you alive. Roxelana's story, though, is a beacon in that darkness. Born Alexandra Lisowska, she entered Topkapı as a slave and left as harem sultan. The human spirit can find a way to rise. She didn't just survive the harem's deadly games. She mastered them, turning its rules against itself to build a legacy that echoed across centuries. Her story speaks to resilience, ambition, and the refusal to accept the limits others impose. In our modern world, where freedom feels like a given, the voices of these women whisper across time, reminding us never to take it for granted, never to underestimate those who seem powerless. That's the story of the Ottoman Imperial Harem, and I hope it's left you as stunned as it has me. What do you think? Could you survive the harem's deadly politics? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you loved diving into this wild piece of history, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. This is WTF History, and we'll see you next time for another story that'll make you say, "What the actual heck?" Stay curious,